that you can think of that they're crazy. They're not crazy. They're just sick. Just like you've got diabetes or you've got HIV or it's a chronic illness that just requires treatment. If that person eats well, exercises, takes their medication, goes to therapy, then they will be just like you and me. Understand that it is an illness, just like any other physical illness. That will change the perspective of mental illnesses in the country and how people see it.
Hi there. Welcome to the Aligned Living Podcast. I'm your host, Kathleen Galatli, and I'm super excited to have you join us. In these episodes, we're going to have some heart-to-heart conversations with experts, everyday wellness enthusiasts, and, well, anyone with a story to share about their journey towards a more balanced and harmonious life. Welcome to the Aligned Living Podcast, where well-being meets wisdom, and the journey is just as important as the destination. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome everyone to the Aligned Living Podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. Episode 21 is a really, really important one, super close to my heart and my own personal journey and the two wonderful women who I have here with me today. So thank you those who are watching us on YouTube, those who are listening to us. Just to let you know, if you're listening, there are three of us. I have the amazing Khwezi and Senzi here. And so the three of us are going to be chatting. So if you're listening to this and you want to see who are the faces behind the voices, head over to the Aligned Living YouTube channel. You can check it out there. But yeah, otherwise, without any further ado, let's get straight into this episode, which is going to be all about mental health, which is one of the pillars of Aligned Living. And I thought we'd do a little introduction first. So either of you ladies can start. Maybe Khwezi, do you want to start? And just give us a little intro to yourself, where you're from. I always love to hear a little bit about someone's upbringing, what made you the person that you are today. And then also I love the question of, was there like an aha moment in your life where for the first time you like realized there is such thing as mental health and wellness and awareness in the world that, you know, you hadn't stepped into before. So yeah, the floor is yours and welcome ladies. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathleen. Hi, everyone. I am Khwezi. I like to call myself a mental health advocate, soon to become a life coach. Watch the space. My background, so I'm from Nelspruit, grew up in Nelspruit, studied there, moved to KZN to study public relations. And I've actually been thinking about my life and trying to understand where this hunger is coming from. Then as I've been reflecting, I actually realized that in my studying public relations, I've always wanted to make an impact. You know, I've always wanted to work with people. And I've never really understood what it's been. I'm still trying to figure out, but I've realized that it started from when I went to study. And a lot of people that I studied with used to say, I didn't know what I want to study and I just chose PR, you know. But for me, it was when I was comparing the things that I could study, I wanted something that would connect me with people. And that's how I ended up studying public relations. But I never worked in the PR space, funny enough. I ended up working in the marketing and advertising space. And I know how people like to say a certain career found them. And I think that's what happened between me and marketing. But I've always literally been running away from the marketing side because I just want to work with people. And how I started, I guess I'm just going to bring in how I ended up working here, is I felt like I just said, marketing was not for me and I wanted to work in the mental health space. And in wanting to work in the mental health space, I guess that came from my aha moment, which happened during COVID-19. I was living alone in a bachelor apartment in Pinetown, KZN. A very small apartment, and I remember there were different levels. At some point, we were not allowed to travel, you know, across provinces. And I have a daughter who I think was 6 or 7 at the time. And my mom sent me a message and she said, my child is not doing well.
Mm.
And she didn't even say she's dying. She didn't say she probably had like, she was sniffing and she had flu, but because so many people were dying, I was like, oh my goodness, here I am stuck 8 hours away. I can't go home. I'm not allowed to go home. Even if I wanted to, I can't, then I had a panic attack. At the time, I didn't know what a panic attack was. I just knew that I was suffocating and I couldn't breathe and I was crying and I was panicking and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm such a bad mom. What if something happens to her? What if, I don't know what's going to happen. And then funny enough, I obviously, because I didn't know it was a panic attack and I didn't know how to stop it, the only way I could stop myself from continuing with suffocating was by telling myself, if you don't stop, then you're the one that's going to die. Then your child won't have a mom, Then I was like, okay, Husa, calm down. And I guess for me, that was my aha moment. I was like, what the hell just happened? What's going on? Then I started doing research and I was like, okay, if I didn't know what was happening, then clearly there's other people out there who have no idea what's going on. Then I started a support group and the rest is history. I'm not going to take too much of time because I could speak for hours, but that's a short snippet of, I guess, how I found myself working in the mental health space.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for that beautiful share. And I'm not going to reflect too much because we laughed before we started recording this because I said, like, you think the time is a lot, but the next thing you know, you've got so much actually to say. And but what you said now is that feeling of hopelessness, of being like, I don't know how to cope with this because I don't understand it. I think that's such a big thing in the mental health world. And yeah, like, I hope that you're super proud of yourself for being able to like pull back and go like, but hey, actually, let me take my experience and help other people. To me, that's like, oh, this woman is in her line of work. Like, if you're able to channel like that. So beautiful, Khwezi. Thank you so, so much. Over to our beautiful Senzi, if you want to tell us a little more about yourself.
Okay, so I am Senzi Shongwe, and I am from a township called Katlehong. It is in the east of Johannesburg, and there I grew up with my mother, my father, as well as my siblings. I've got an older brother, I've got a younger sister, and I've got, well, another sister. So that was just my household where I grew up in an environment where I was never exposed to mental health, never exposed to psychology. I actually only learned about psychology when I was exploring career options after my matric or during my matric year. And I'm like, oh, there's this thing that exists. However, as a child, I always told my mom that I want to become a doctor or a nurse or whatever it is. But I want to sit in a room with people and help them with their issues. I did not have a name to this thing. I even went as far as looking at, studying like your dentistries, your optometrist, doctor, because I just thought that would give me an opportunity to be one-on-one with a person and actually help them. And I remember how I always used to motivate people. I used to love writing motivational notes, those notes that you get from diaries, from TV and all of that. I was just a motivational person from the Bible. I would grasp some things and I would share with people. And I always felt that when people come and speak to me, they found a form of healing, but I did not have a name to it. I did not know what it meant. And when I went into varsity and I was not accepted into medicine, and this lady, she's a career advisor, I will never forget her. Her name is Nozipho, wherever she is. And she was like, you would make a really great psychologist. I'm like, a what? Like a psychologist, like a social worker. And I'm like, I don't want to be a social worker because obviously in my mind, social worker is something different, right? And I knew what it is that I wanted to do. I never saw myself doing everything else that, people speak about, accounting, blah, 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 blah. I just wanted to be one with people and I wanted to feel people's souls. And for me, that is what drove me and I wanted that thing. So when I started the psychology degree, I did not know what I was doing. All I knew was that I want to sit with people and I want to heal them through words,
Mm-hmm.
through what I say, and even in silence, that when a person is in the same room with me and we are here for the same purpose, which is healing, I can heal through them, they can heal through me. And that is what I believe I've been called for. I see even now the transition that happens, when I enter a therapy room and what happens in that space and how people would always say, thank you. And I'm like, I really did not say anything, I just listened. And then lucky for me, my career in mental health was very enriched. I still think it's a calling because I never struggled with opportunities when it comes to mental health. Actually, I have always been given an opportunity to do the work and what I've been called for, whether this is by somebody saying, Senzi, can you do something for me? But everything that I've been called to do has been for the purpose of healing. So when I was doing second year, I was approached by somebody who worked at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. And they said, you can come and volunteer here, right? And this is a huge organization. And I'm like, me, volunteer, okay. And then my mom is like, this would be good for your experience, so go for it. And she supported me throughout the journey. But when I got there, again, all I had was the theory from first year, second year, and I still didn't know what I was doing. All I was doing was, and it's not the same. I mean, someone that has studied psychology will tell you that it's not the same to study, write an exam, and to actually interact. And the first time I spoke to someone who said to me, I want to end it. I was like, what? There's actually people who want to end their lives. Life can't be that terrible, and I've been through terrible things in my life, but I never thought of having suicidal thoughts as an illness or having depression as an illness. I just thought I'm sad and maybe I'm just tired, wake up tomorrow and soldier on again. But then when I started listening to people and I started building relationships with people, I started being immersed in the therapeutic work, then I started reflecting on my past, on my family, that actually my mom has symptoms of depression, that my dad has got symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, that I have gone through some really traumatic things in my life, and this is what they're called. And that for me was enlightening. And then it evoked this passion to teach. This still is the greatest passion of mine. And whenever I get the opportunity to teach, I use it. So when that sparked in my mind, I was like, I'm a teacher and I'm going to teach mental health, no matter what it takes. So I carried on and I graduated and I continued working at SADC and I grew until I managed their training department, which is an experience that I'll never forget, where I would teach young people who are still in university, first year, second year, some doing their honors, some are done, but they've never had practical experience, about actually helping a person. That is not just a theory, it is actually, how do you connect? How do you build rapport? The power of just listening, the power of saying, I am here for you, the power of saying, actually, I get it. Or even saying, I don't get it, but I am here. Even saying, I don't know what the solution is, but I can hold your hand and we can together. And that for me is still a really great passion of mine. And in whatever work that I do, whether I go and do public talks, whether I do media, whatever it is that I do, my sole purpose is for me to teach so that you can teach. Because if I give you the knowledge that I have, firstly, if I keep equipping myself, then I take that, I give it to you, you take it and you give it to another person. And in that way, we're building a chain of people that care for other people and people understand the essence of just listening and being there.
Sure.
That's me.
I'm just like, mic drop, mic drop, mic drop, mic drop on all of that. Sure. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's so, when I have these conversations and we go into the upbringing of people, it just shows how important that is, how that has helped to shape and form who you are today. And for a lot of people, I think, our generation is quite different, but like our parents' generation, mental health was really not a thing. Like, whereas still now it's not really a thing, it was really not a thing. And for us to be able to, you know, have these moments where we can understand it more and take it that step further, where I love what you say, because there's that saying of give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, teach a man to fish and he'll eat for the rest of his life. And I believe that that is the way forward, is upskilling and equipping people with knowledge and education and wisdom that they, so that's one of the ethoses of aligned living, is helping you become your own healer and empowering people to be able to do that through knowledge, through learning, through support. What I really loved for you saying that you said there as well was, I might not have an answer for you, but I'm there to hold your hand until there is one. And that is so huge. I know, like in the yoga space as well, like people come in and I can't, you know, fix your marriage for you. I can't help you find a new job necessarily. I can't maybe help you do all these things, but you can come to the space for an hour and you can fill your own cup and you can nurture your nervous system and you can meet yourself where you are. Maybe find a little bit of clarity, find a little bit of space so that you're able to move out of that intense overwhelm and take those little steps forward. And I think in mental health, that support looks so different for so many people. So it might be a counselor, it might be a psychologist, it might be a psychiatrist, it might be yoga, it might be movement therapy or trauma counseling. I think that the world is not even aware of the amount of practices and facilitators there are that can actually help with mental health. I think there is this stigma of, oh, if there's something wrong with me, I'm going to go to a psychologist and they're going to put me on medication. Like, I think that that's the only way that people think that it works. I would love, I know, Senzi, you said that you would love to chat a little bit, or I asked you to chat a little bit about like kind of stigmas around mental health. And I'd love for you to share a little more around that. I mean, there are so many. I know when I was diagnosed with bipolar and the doctor said, okay, you need to go on medication, it was so difficult for me because within my own household, it was torn. My mom was saying, go on the meds. And my dad was saying, you don't need it, don't go on the meds. And this friend was saying, take cannabis. And that friend was saying, do a mushroom journey. And this friend was saying, you know, you're making it all up in your head. And, you know, so like there were so many opinions around all these things because everyone has their own biases towards it and there are their stigmas against it. So I'd love for you to share kind of, and I'm sure you get these kind of inquiries all the time, maybe even from your own clients, where they think something is stupid and it's like almost unnecessary for them to bring it up, when actually it might be something important that is worth sharing.
I must say that there's always been a mental health stigma, right, in our country and worldwide. And I think because mental health is very scary. It is very scary because you don't see it, right? It's not like when you see a cut on the physical body and you can see someone bleeding. But with mental health, someone is actually hurt internally and people don't see it. Now, you actually have to explain you're hurt. You have to explain how much you're bleeding from inside. And from a person that doesn't understand it, it's a bit weird. And also, if you are experiencing it and you don't have enough knowledge for it or about it, then how can you express it to somebody else? So what happens is that you keep quiet and then it hurts you even more. You get even worse until you get to a point where you no longer can contain those feelings and those emotions. So I understand why people are still scared of speaking about their mental health journeys, why people are still scared to say that I've got a mental illness, because you never know if Khwezi understands what bipolar is and how she will receive me. You know, sometimes it's even very uncomfortable when somebody says you have bipolar. What is that? Because now you have to start from the beginning and you have to explain. Unlike when somebody says, you know, I've got cancer, you almost become immediately empathetic to that person because they've got cancer. But I believe that when you are struggling from a mental health perspective, then nothing else actually functions well because everything stems from the mind. And when people start to understand that, then you become more courageous to seek help and to get the help that you need. So the issue of stigma comes from a lack of education. And I must say, and I must applaud a lot of people that since COVID-19, a lot of people are more aware of mental health related challenges. A lot of people are more empathetic. We're still not there, far from it, but we have made progress, and that is a good thing. But it is very important to everyone that is listening. It is very important for you to not judge somebody because of how they behave, because of how they think, because you never know what has happened to them. You never know what has led them to where they are. And also remember that when it comes to mental health related challenges, it is not always about what happened to a person or whatever it is that you're thinking, but sometimes it can be genetic. Sometimes a person might just be born with the genetic vulnerability to a mental illness. Is there something they can do about it? Probably not. They just have to get treatment. And when you are kind and empathetic towards those people, you are offering them that space to actually be comfortable with their healing journey. And I don't want to say to people that are struggling, speak about it openly, because we're still not in a safe environment for us to be open about it. So find that one person or those two people that you can confide in, those two people who want to understand you and who want to walk the journey with you, because it really is still difficult. You also spoke to me earlier before we recorded about the myths that are there. There's still a lot of misconceptions when it comes to mental illnesses. For example, that when somebody's suicidal, then they're weak. Or when somebody contemplates suicide, then they want to seek attention. Who would just wake up and decide that I want to seek attention by taking my life? I need people to understand that for a person to get to a point where they want to take their lives, it means they have exhausted all their options. Trust me, they have thought about solutions. They have thought about a way out. They've thought about being strong. They've thought about it all. And now the only options that is left is to take their lives because they have exhausted all their options. Now, it is not your job to be judgmental. It is not your job to make them feel small for that decision, but it is your job to say, how can I help you? Because sometimes saying that, just that, is giving hope. When somebody struggles with depression, when somebody struggles with low moods, all they need is hope. And if you can offer people hope, then you have made a huge difference. There's still a lot of misconceptions that when somebody has got bipolar, somebody has got schizophrenia, somebody has got all the psychiatric mental illnesses that you can think of, that they're crazy. They're not crazy, they're just sick. Just like you've got diabetes or you've got HIV or it's a chronic illness that just requires treatment. If that person eats well, exercises, takes their medication, goes to therapy, then they will be just like you and me. Understand that it is an illness, just like any other physical illness. That will change the perspective of mental illnesses in the country and how people see it. So if anyone is listening and is watching today, forget about mental illness not being a real thing, because trust me, it is a real thing. And I always say, Kathleen, that everyone has got mental health. By virtue of the fact that you are a human being, you've got mental health, that you have got the responsibility to nurture, the responsibility to take care of. Because if you don't, then you'll get sick.
Yeah.
Just like with physical health. If you don't take care of yourself, you don't exercise, you don't eat well, you don't take your medication, what will happen? You'll get sick. Then if you get sick, you don't get treated, you die. Just like with mental health, right? You die, but in this case, you die of suicide. So let us look at physical health and mental health as the very same thing. It's just that the other one is very visible and the other one isn't.
Can I just add that for me, what I like to preach in inverted commas is self-awareness, I'm not going to have the capacity to understand Senzi's mental health state if I have no idea what's happening to me.
Yes.
It's going to be very easy for me to pick up that someone driving across the road has anger issues and they're hooting because they're crazy, when I'm not empathetic with myself because maybe I'm having a bad morning today and I'm feeling angry. But now it's easy for me to say, hey, shut up, Wena, you know? So I think the first step for me is self-awareness and being aware of what is happening in my body, in my head. Doesn't mean go to therapy, you know. I think just spending time with yourself, reflecting, and then, you know, then it makes it easier to understand and being more empathetic and understanding and kind when it comes to other people. Then it even opens you up to learning about these myths and these stigmas. Then it even becomes, I remember there was a day where I think I actually said, someone was crazy. I don't know, in the office, and Senzi was like, we don't use the word crazy. We don't call people crazy. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I didn't mean it like that. But the fact that there's the stigma around the word crazy, you know, and in the work that we do also, we need to be aware, we need to be sensitive also in how we carry ourselves and how we understand one another.
Definitely.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. That was really, really informational. And I like bringing kind of what you both said together there is, I think that what people need to be aware of is that your journey is very unique and it's very individual. And so, you know, as Khwezi was saying, self-awareness is the first step. But as Senzi was saying, looking at yourself can be very, very hard. So I think it's like if you can bring in compassion for self as well as external support, because a lot of the time we're unable to really look at ourselves and look at it. And I mean, I had therapy yesterday, and I'm like, and also talk therapy is not for everyone as well. So for me, talk therapy has been extremely helpful with my psychologist. And we went through, and I mean, I have been doing this work in inverted commas for many, many years now. And my whole session yesterday was about self-love, self-forgiveness, and self-acceptance. And we were speaking about a specific thing that I'm working through at the moment. And she said to me, Kathleen, if we take this one thing and we put our energy in for it for you to kind of work through, it's going to take at least a year for you to work through this, because these things take time. You have to be patient with yourself, and you need the right support to get through all of these things. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on with exactly what you were both speaking to now about, like being like, oh, they're crazy, or, you know, whatever. I have like, obviously initially it triggered me, but so often when someone is showing like any kind of erratic behavior, people will go like, yo, there's someone like, I swear they've got bipolar, or stop acting like a bipolar person, or whatever the case might be. And it's been so interesting because when people say it in my company, then I go, oh, I was diagnosed with bipolar 5 years ago, 2 years ago, or I struggle with bipolar, and people do not know what to say. And one of the other things of the like kind of in the stigma misconception world, I think, is especially with bipolar, when they say she is bipolar, instead of she is suffering from bipolar, or she has bipolar, or she's been diagnosed with bipolar, people often say, oh, that person's bipolar. That person is not bipolar. That person is not depression. That person is not those things. It is something that they are dealing with and coping with in their own way, with like what Senzi was saying about herself, within their own capacity of their own knowledge that they have of this thing. They're using the resources that they have. And so I think really like kindness, as you both said, bringing in kindness, bringing in patience. And what I also, I mean, I'm just going to keep saying what I love that you said, because you two are just, yeah, you're both amazing. And what I love that you said, Senzi, was I feel like for the three of us, we've been doing this work for a long time. So to speak on an open public platform about our mental health, it's what we do. we do this because there's really a purpose and a drive for us on a very deep level to share our stories. Not everyone has to share their story. And Senzi, I love what you said about saying you don't have to tell everyone. Find one person, two people that you can trust with what is going on, but find someone. And I have this conversation a lot with my clients in saying that I think as humans, we have this expectation of every person in our life showing up for us in every way that we need them to be. Whereas that's not really how it works. Like, not even my partner can be everything that I need him to be. This friend might not have the capacity, the emotional intelligence to show up for me in the way that I need them to. That doesn't mean necessarily they don't love me or they don't get me. They just don't understand. So there are some people that I don't talk to about certain things because I know that their reaction is going to make me feel uncomfortable, make me feel sad, make me feel triggered, make me feel like maybe I'm just like, who's this person? When actually they don't have the capacity to handle it. And I think if and when you are perhaps diagnosed with anxiety or with depression or any of these things, there also needs to be an awareness that the people in your life are also now experiencing this with you. And I know when I first got my diagnosis, like my mom was like reading up about it, researching about it. How can she know more? Like when my partner and I got together and I shared everything with him, like he was researching. So he will often or my mom will often bring up and they'll see me and they'll say, listen, Kath, I've just been noticing that your behavior is like a little bit manic at the moment. Like, are you okay? Like, are you doing okay? But they've had to educate themselves to understand what I am going through. And the difficult thing with that is not everyone has those people in their lives within their close family or within their close friends. Again, there might be that one person. But the good news is there are other people who, even though they may be not blood family or people you grew up with, there are people who can kind of become your family and can be those people who are interested in your journey and are interested in what you're doing and have a passion to actually help you. And I'm going to use this as a little segue to Panda, which is kind of how Khwezi and I met, how we connected. Panda now going to be called October, which these two ladies will get to. Share a little bit, please, about how, because that's kind of, Panda becomes that external family for you if you're someone who maybe doesn't feel comfortable yet sharing it with your friends or family, or maybe doesn't feel like you've got enough support. Khwezi, do you want to share a little bit about how you got into Panda, what Panda does, and then we can kind of bounce off the two of you.
Okay, so maybe a short little story about how I found out Panda exists. I was driving back to Durban from home, and I was listening to a podcast, a mental health podcast, because I had decided that this is the work that I'm doing. So I was researching a lot. And then in listening to the podcast, I heard Ellen, who is the co-founder of Panda, speaking about this app that has just been launched and how this app has been created to give people access to mental health, to give people resources, because a lot of the time people are struggling, but they don't know where to find help, or people are struggling, but they don't know that they're struggling, or people are struggling and they know where to find help, but they can't afford to find help. So they wanted to build this resource that gives people access to that, a safe space for them to also be connected with mental health professionals. So I actually reached out to the Panda team and I was like, this is amazing. I love the work that you guys are doing. This is brilliant. This is exactly what I think everyone needed during COVID. And a few months later, they reached out. They were like, we love your energy. We love your passion. We'd like to work with you. And I was like, yes. And then in terms of how the company was started, just going back to the beginning. So Ellen, like I mentioned, is a clinical psychologist. He actually founded Akiso Clinics. And he sold it to Netcare in 2018. He met with Alon Litz, who was the first employee of Uber in Africa. And because Ellen has the psychology background and Alon has his tech background, they actually both wanted to create a space where they make a difference. Alon wasn't sure, he was still considering doing something in education, but I guess they came to a conclusion and they were like, actually, here's something, there's not a lot of resources that do this. Let's create this app. Let's make it free so people can give access. And because Ellen had Akeso and there's actual physical hospitals, he felt like he didn't make as much impact as he wanted to, you know. The beds are limited, and we know not everyone can afford to pay for a stay in Akeso. So doing something that's on a digital platform meant that a lot of people's lives would be changed. It wouldn't just be something that's in South Africa, but it could be something that grows and becomes global. So they came together, they started the company, and we turn 2 in the 10th of October, which leads us to the brand change, which is a link to why the company's name is going to be called October. Part of the reason is because October is Mental Health Awareness Month, and also because Ellen lost his brother in October. He, I think he was suffering from opioid. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I think the name of the company was basically in memory of his brother. And part of the journey of losing his brother was also why he started his career in the mental health space. So we're obviously going to be sharing more. There's going to be a video of Ellen telling his story so people can watch the space. Probably by the time this comes out, that will already be on our YouTube page. But that's a short background of the Panda and how Panda started.
Sure. Actually, yeah, I didn't even know that. And again, going back to how we started this, how someone's story literally brought them to where they are today. Yeah, I love it so much. And when I actually found out about Panda through Esmery, who runs the Future Females branch in Pretoria, and she spoke about you, and then I also just like reached out, and so super glad that we connected. Now Sisters for Life, which is like so exciting, and Khwezi and look at my little YouTube heart, my Zoom heart. Khwezi and I are already like chatting about like future collaborations, and Senzi had a great conversation when we chatted first about this talk, about her ideas and visions for mental health going forward in this country, and that just excites me so much. I'd love to hear a little more about the roles that you two play currently in the company, and also how you have maybe seen in your own experience firsthand how something like a mental health app is actually making a difference.
Okay, so I am a senior counselor at Panda. So I manage our independent contractors, so the people that are actually offering the sessions on the app, and the people that are delivering the support and psychoeducation on the app, since you know I'm very passionate about education. So I manage those pool of people, and I also do manage our volunteers, who are the people that actually are working with us to provide the psychoeducation, but on a voluntary stance. And I also work very closely with our B2B team in terms of making sure that mental health in the workplace is something that exists and something that is spoken about within corporate spaces. What was the second part of the question?
How have you, in your experience, seen how like a mental health app is actually helping people?
Yes. So it does help people a lot. Like Khwezi said, this is an app where, if you think about it, almost everyone has got a phone. If you think about it, almost everyone has got access to a Wi-Fi, even if they don't have it at home, but they can go to free Wi-Fi spots and they can actually access Wi-Fi. So when somebody has got mental health assistance in the palm of their hands, you can imagine how easily accessible that is. When somebody is feeling panicky, when somebody is feeling stressed out, when somebody does not have anyone to speak to, they are able to take their phone, speak to our AI Luna, or they are able to get onto the app, speak to a professional mental health expert through the sessions that we hold is something that is, I believe, magical. Because if you think of the traditional way in which you get to speak to a professional, you have to book an appointment, you have to drive, go to their office, and then you have to pay. But in this case, if you're feeling like you need to speak now, all you have to do is take your phone, get on the app and speak. And I think that that is magical. I do not have any other word for it except magical. It is so quick, it is so efficient, and definitely I've seen it help a number of people. I've seen people coming on each and every day and seeing them progressing and becoming better through the sessions that, you know, they attend within this app. And I think this app is just about to do great things, not just in South Africa, but globally as well.
Take a breather and explore the Aligned Living on-demand video library, along with our exclusive membership perks. Plus, our YouTube channel is already up and running, offering even more wellness content. Your path to holistic living is just one click away. Visit our website to learn more. And now, let's return to our inspiring discussion. Like, so important. I feel like so important, because often what I have found and what I've seen, not only through my clients, but with myself as well, is that something happens and it's almost like you actually need someone like in that moment or like quite shortly after to be there or to hear or for you to be able to speak, because it's when you go through like maybe the next day or the next day, what we do to deal with it and cope with it is we start to suppress. A week later you feel better because you're not in the traumatized or the heightened state anymore of what happened. And then you go, oh no, I'm fine. Like, you know, it happened, like I had the panic attack or this like traumatic thing happened, but you know what, actually, like I'm feeling better now, so I'm just gonna leave it. And then you just carry on. But that thing is not disappeared. It's still in the subconscious, it's still in the body. And so I really appreciate that part of it, of like, if you need to speak to someone now, there is something available, someone available who you can speak to. And you know, as we've said throughout this conversation, the accessibility of mental health is actually really tricky, because on the one hand, you've got your psychologists, which most people can't afford. And people who can even afford it, I think, struggle to prioritize spending money on that, which is like, I always laugh because I always say so many of my people that I know, their cars are insured, but they don't have health insurance. Which like, okay, let's not go into health insurance and the insurance industry, because that is as frustrating as we all know as it is, but just the concept of you'd insure your car, but you won't insure your health. And then on the other spectrum of it, where you look into things like free offerings or free counselors, or social workers, their dockets are so stacked. They are trying to help so many people. They're under-resourced, they're overworked. I mean, in South Africa, it's not like the government is throwing even 10 rands at the mental health industry, really. And so it's really tricky. So I think it's almost like this app can kind of meet people in the middle, connecting them to professionals. But I know that you also do some free offerings and some talks and things during the week, where people can tune in. And, you know, sometimes you just hear that one little message or that one thing that someone says to you, and that can actually be the difference between someone falling deeper into a hole or actually coming out of it. And I feel like both of you have shared like so many of those moments in this conversation. As you said in the beginning, Senzi, I think like hope is such an important thing to be able to give people, and for people to know that you are not alone. And I think that's one of the other beautiful things of the Panda Now October app, is that it's quite community driven. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where it goes and how it grows. We'll definitely have links in the show notes below. And kind of on that note of sharing those little golden pieces of nuggets, I would love for each of you to share. So maybe Khwezi, we start with you. you've been on your mental health journey for a while now. I'm sure you've picked up your tools and your practices, maybe your daily rituals or routine, or things that not only help you in emergency situations, but the things that are the sustainable preventative type practices. Because I was actually recording a video yesterday speaking about how very often when things start, and this happens a lot in the mental health world, is when people start, they go on medication, they start doing better, and they go, I'm doing great, I don't need my meds. It happens so often. And that happens the same with the more, I guess, subtler things of, I'm doing my yoga because I was stiff and I was stressed, or I was this, and I start doing it and I feel great. Oh, I don't need to go back to yoga anymore. Whereas I think, between the three of us, we've learned that these practices are not things that are the emergency stuff. We don't want to even try and get to the emergency place. We want to try and hold ourselves in a regulated space where we can build on more vitality and health than trying to almost rescue ourselves over and over and over again. Please, will you share some of your practical day-to-day tips or tools, maybe for those who have never thought about their mental health journey, or maybe those who are also on their mental health journey already?
Okay, so I think for me, what I've learned is that it's important to know what works for you, because we listen to these podcasts. As I'm listening to a podcast, I'm like, yes, I can do it. I'm going to journal every day of my life, and it's going to change my world. And I'm going to be so aware of what I am and how I feel. And I'm going to know myself, and I'm going to be a different person. And exercising every day is all, it's really understanding what works for me and what I have the capacity to do. And also I was reflecting, and I was in a conversation yesterday, and what stood out for me in that conversation was celebrating the small wins, which is something that I don't do a lot of. And I also mentioned that I've been trying to take walks on a daily basis, and I've been trying to walk 30 minutes. And I haven't done it for a long time. And then I did it the other day and I walked 23 minutes. But I came back feeling like, oh man, I only did 23 minutes. Instead of celebrating those 23 minutes of victory, because I got up from my bumps and I went outside and I took that walk. So my step one is really just understanding what it is that works for me. And what works for me is music. Music is my life. It brings life into my soul whenever I'm feeling a certain way, depending on the mood that I'm in. Just playing music and listening to music and being mindful in listening to the type of music that I'm listening to, allowing the rhythm. Yesterday on my walk, I was playing music and I was dancing like a crazy person. That really ignites a flame. But my most important thing for myself is my faith. That is my number one. People are over me and my sending random verses on a daily basis. I mean, I send her random verses sometimes, and I'm sure she's like, hallelujah, thank you. But for me, it's really music and my faith, and that just grounds me. It makes me feel like a human being. And I think in me filling my cup with those two things, then I'm able to come back to myself and do, because obviously exercising is important, eating healthy is important, but also not making it like a chore is also another thing that I've realized. Not making it feel like, oh, I need to wake up in the morning and take a walk, or I need to wake up and exercise. Not make it like a chore, but build it in as part of my identity. Because I love myself, I'm going to do things that are good for my body. I'm going to feed myself things that are going to nourish my body. I'm going to listen to music or watch shows that are going to impart knowledge or make me laugh or make me happy. But yeah, those are my few things that work for me.
Love, 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 love. Thanks, babe. Senzi, what are yours?
Khwezi has mentioned a lot of them, and a lot of the ones that she's mentioned are things that work for me as well. But above everything else that is practical that we do to help ourselves, for me, is support. Khwezi will tell you that I'm an introverted person. It's very hard for me to build connections with people in that manner. But the people that I currently have in my life, whenever I pick up the phone and say I'm not well, and how they are able to leave everything and just listen to me, for me, it's just the most amazing thing and the most helpful thing. So to everybody, I'd like to say, find that space that works for you, whether that is attending a Panda Forest session, or that is joining a support group, or that is having a partner that cares and loves you and wants to listen to you, or a friend or a sister or a brother. But find your space of solace. Find your space where you can just pour it out, because I feel that every time after I have just spoken, I feel like this huge sense of relief. And for me, that works. Journaling doesn't work for me because I don't like writing and I don't like to get my own handwriting. I don't like typing, so it doesn't work for me. But speaking works for me. You know, being around people that love me works for me. And for me to also know that it's only a small number of people that I am able to be comfortable with makes a huge difference. But definitely exercise is important. Eating healthy is important. Journaling, if it works for you, is important. What is important is for you to have an outlet. So
Yeah.
however it is that you outlet and you take it out, then that is the objective. Whether that is through exercise, it is through writing, speaking, whatever that works for you, just take it out. It doesn't belong right there. Remove out.
In a positive way.
In a positive
Don't
way.
shout and swear at people and strangers
Yes,
on the streets
exactly.
when you're driving. Dash.
Or go find a place at the ocean or the mountains and scream it all
Yes.
out. Yeah. And like, like I love that, both of you brought in like movements and dance and expression and singing and all these things where you can actually just find that release. Because again, I feel like, a lot of these things are born because we fester and we hold these things in, and it's at this, and again, accessibility is a challenge, but I think that more and more support is becoming accessible to people. And so knowing that if you're listening to this, if you are not sure how to approach someone, where to find someone, feeling too nervous to interact, feeling like you might be stupid or that you have a stupid question, reach out to me, reach out to one of these incredible women. Get in touch. I'll have all our details and things in the show notes. There is no such thing as a stupid question. I say this over and over and over again. And a lot of the time, our lessons are things that we learn over and over again in life. I think we've all done those things. We've all participated in those habits where we go, this is not good for me, and now I've done it again. And then it's the whipping of the back. And I didn't walk my 30 minutes. I only did my 23. Now I feel bad and I'm putting more guilt and shame onto myself. If you're showing up for yourself, whether it is for 1 minute, whether it's for 23 minutes, whether it's for 30 minutes, that's the important part, because you start to build a relationship with yourself. And for your healing to take place, little by little, you start to build your own trust, your own love, your self-respect, your self-confidence. And little by little, you start to feel more comfortable in your own story, but also realizing that we have built a lot of identities around ourselves that aren't necessarily true. There's the saying that goes, don't believe everything you think. And when you are struggling with something like depression or anxiety, bipolar, whatever it might be, I do want to share that, one of the big lessons that I've had to learn is the healthy regulation of emotions and the identification of um of appropriate emotions. And that's not to say your emotions are inappropriate and I'm not allowed to be angry or I'm not allowed to be sad. It's looking at, this is what happened. If I look at how extremely sad I am feeling now, what is the connection to this? And am I feeling almost maybe like overly sad about this? Or am I feeling maybe that I'm suppressing it? Or was it necessary to hoot and scream at the person who was a little bit slow at the traffic light? And it's not about labeling these instances good or bad. It's about observing yourself. And the same as Khwezi said, like self-awareness, 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 and keeping in mind that if you've been diagnosed with one of these things, you are most likely dealing with some form of chemical imbalance within the brain and within the body. This means that your hormones and the little guys who are telling you when to feel happy and when to feel sad, they're not really working properly. They're struggling to communicate, and sometimes they maybe rush out with a lot of them, and sometimes they don't want to come out. And so you might, what I found, and this is speaking out of experience for me, was sometimes I'd be feeling incredibly anxious or incredibly low. And because a lot of us, I think, can tend to be quite, in human nature, we want to try and control things. And so when I start feeling really down or anxious, my brain goes, this is how I'm feeling. Okay, what is causing this? Because if I can figure out what's causing this, then I can fix it. And if I fix it, I'll feel better. When sometimes all I have to do is accept that that is just how I'm feeling right now. It's potentially a physical anxiety, energetic thing that's going on. And I don't actually have to go and look at, oh, maybe it's my relationship. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's that project. Maybe I shouldn't have said yes to that thing. Because if I try and find the answer and the solution, then I don't have to feel what I'm feeling. But our feelings are communicators, but they can also be a physical feeling, a physical emotion that you are just going through. And so for me, going through my bipolar journey, it's been this journey of, it's interesting because it's a balance of both trusting and just being aware of my emotions, where they're coming from and what is triggering them, to know that sometimes when I'm feeling down, I'm just feeling down. There doesn't have to be a reason. I don't have to fix it. No one has to fix it for me. Yet, and that does not change the fact that I'm feeling down. So if I'm feeling down, then for me, it's like, okay, cool, I go for a swim. I allow myself to have maybe a little cry in the ocean, or I sit with my partner and I say to him, I don't need you to speak to me. I don't need you to tell me not to cry. I'm just going to have a little cry. It's not about you. It's not about anything. I just need to cry. And so, reiterating again what Khwezi said, that self-awareness, get to know yourself. And there are many ways in which to do that. Again, I know we can all go on forever. So I want to go into our last kind of little bit of this conversation, which is the question that I ask everyone. Senzi, we'll just start with you. And the question is, what is an aligned life look like to you or feel like to you when you are aligned?
It is when I have a good relationship with my God. For me, that is alignment. When I'm able to speak to God, hear from God, and sometimes see God's face, actually, in whatever way that I imagine him to be. When I find comfort in that space, in that my quiet space, my quiet corner, where I'm able to just cry, laugh, have a conversation with God, because that is the foundation of everything that I am and who I am. Without that part of my life, there's no me, because everything that I am, how I speak, how I think, the work I do, the people that are in my life, everything that pours outside of me starts from that corner where I'm just one with my God.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Copy paste.
beautiful. Khwezi, are you gonna double that?
Copy paste. But I think when you asked what aligned means, I think for me, I just thought connected. Obviously, number one for me is also God, being connected with God, but being connected with myself as well. Like, I think I spend a lot of time with myself in the morning, whether I'm complaining or whether I'm excited or whether I'm just for 10 minutes thinking of how amazing the sleep was. And I just woke up and I'm like, oh my goodness, that was amazing. But I think it's just being connected. That is whether I'm connecting with my daughter or I'm being connected to you right now and I'm having this conversation and I'm going to change someone's life and I'm going to bring sunshine into someone's darkness. But I think for me, alignment is connection in whatever.
Ladies, thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation. Like, I am like, how did I get like this lucky that this is like how I get to spend my time? I always say, like, even though I'm doing this podcast to share with the world, like selfishly, I'm like, this is like my favorite thing to do is to have these conversations. And I'm so inspired by both of your stories and all the conversations that we've had online and offline. I can just see the two of you being these pioneers in the mental health world, especially in South Africa. Yes, girls, especially in South Africa. And yeah, I mean, I will, and the Line Living platform will support you in any way possible moving forward. It's super exciting. Please keep fighting the good fight, and know that you are never alone, and that if you ever need anywhere to reach out to, that I'm just so grateful for this new sisterhood that's been found here. Thank you so much for joining, and just a thank you to everyone who has listened to this conversation, who's watched it. Please leave a comment, let us know how you found it. If you are on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Let us know if you've got any questions in the comments. Those who are listening on a podcast, again, subscribe. Share this with someone you feel might need to hear just even one sentence that you heard in this conversation. As we said earlier, you never know how that can make a difference. And then just before we end off, what's the easiest way for people to find you two? And is there any last words?
What's the easiest way to find me? I guess it's through email. People can email me at senzekile@joinpanda.com if they want to make a difference, if they want to host sessions, if they want to find out how they can start their journey as a mental health professional. That is where I can be found. And any last words is just be kind to yourself.
Oh, nice. How people can find me is maybe I've got a few accounts, but let's use the easy one. Let's use Sisonke Wellness on Instagram. You'll find me there. And then my last words are, you've got this.
Ladies, thank you so much. This was power. I actually can't wait to listen to it again. And I'm going to try and listen to it for myself, not being someone who's hosting it. Because there was really some beautiful information in there. And I'm so grateful for you. And the world is lucky to have you both in it. So thank you for doing the work that you do. It's not in every person's journey to step onto this path. It's not always an easy path to be on. And you both continue to walk your own journey while you are really stepping up and making a difference in the world. And that says a lot. So thank you so much. So much love. Again, thank you to everyone for listening. Check out the show notes to get in touch if you'd like to. And yeah, see you all at the next episode. Lots of love.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Aligned Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration, insight, and a fresh perspective on your journey towards holistic well-being. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, your feedback fuels our mission to bring you valuable content that aligns with your life. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, and feel free to reach out with your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future episodes. We would love to hear from you. But until next time, take good care of yourself, embrace the present moment, and remember you are your own healer. Thank you for being a part of our community. Goodbye for now.